In February in New York, the steps of the Metropolitan Museum of Art were enveloped in the early morning fog. There were few tourists around, and in the corner of the stone steps, a young woman sat huddled. She wore a frayed duffel coat with the collar turned up, her pencil racing over a sketchbook. Her name is Emma Gray. Now 24 years old, she became an orphan as a child. She was adopted by a foster father, who was a part-time lecturer and a painter, and a foster mother who ran a small art supply store. They were not wealthy but provided a warm home filled with love for art. Under her foster father's guidance, Emma honed her talent and grew until she went to art school. However, fate struck her cruelly. On a winter night, just before her college graduation 2 years ago, she was involved in a collision with a truck on an icy road while returning home with her foster parents. Both her foster parents died at the scene, and only Emma survived. After the accident, Emma was forced into a long hospitalization, and the massive medical bills overwhelmed her. The insurance money ran out with the treatment costs, and the art supply store had to close due to unpaid rent. After being discharged, she tried desperately to work and continue her education. But the part-time jobs couldn't keep up with the medical bills, and she eventually had to give up college. Even selling the art supply store was barely enough to cover her remaining debts. And ultimately, she lost her home as well. Life on the streets was harsh for a young woman. At night, to avoid danger, she shuffled between 24-hour diners and public libraries. On rainy days, she would spend the night in subway stations. Occasionally, she could stay at a church shelter, but was often turned away because it was full. Yet, she never forgot to draw. "I love this color of the sky." Emma paused her hand and looked up at the sky blending into the morning mist, a mix of blue and gray that felt nostalgically familiar, as if she had seen it with someone once. As the morning progressed and the sun rose, more people headed to the museum. Emma quickly captured them: a man in a suit, a tourist with a camera, children on their way to school. She sketched their movements and expressions with precise lines, a unique style she hadn't learned from anyone but naturally acquired. "Amazing. It looks alive," said a girl's voice. Emma looked up to see a high school girl in uniform, her eyes full of curiosity peering into the sketchbook. "Thank you." Emma smiled, a radiant expression that showed no signs of her hardship on the streets. As the morning turned into afternoon and the sun climbed higher, Emma paused her sketching to check her belongings. Inside her worn backpack were several precious sketchbooks, a change of clothes, and most importantly, a worn photograph filled with memories of her foster parents. In the back, there was an old paintbrush she had cherished since childhood, belonging to someone she couldn't remember, but couldn't part with. "I hope I can get inside the museum today," Emma murmured. On weekends, when security was lax, she sometimes sneaked in, especially loving the impressionist exhibit room where she could spend hours captivated by the magic of light and color. "Oh, what a lovely painting," a graceful voice said suddenly. Emma looked up to see a young woman in a stylish coat, probably about 21, exuding an air of sophistication. "May I buy this sketch?" the woman, who introduced herself as Olivia Howard, asked, showing genuine interest in Emma's work. "Oh, this is intriguing," another voice joined in. Olivia's mother, Victoria, a middle-aged woman, stared intently at Emma, her gaze containing something beyond mere curiosity, a mix of surprise and a calculative tint. "Mother, her paintings are truly wonderful," Olivia said, unable to hide her admiration. "Yes, indeed." Victoria's voice had a curious tone. "You've received some academic art education, haven't you?" Emma showed a moment of confusion. Indeed, her drawings bore traces of classical techniques, particularly in how she captured light, a habit she was unaware of. "I used to be at an art college." Emma's words trailed off as Victoria began to speak in a deliberately graceful tone. We're planning an exhibition at our home gallery. Would you consider displaying your work there? And, perhaps you could use our studio to focus on creating for a while. Olivia sparkled with excitement. What a wonderful idea. I've wanted a partner to paint with. Emma was bewildered. Struggling daily for survival, the idea of an exhibition was beyond her imagination, and she felt an odd sense of unease with the sudden generosity of the mother and daughter. However, Victoria's next words shook her. You shouldn't waste your talent. There's a familiar, nostalgic warmth to your paintings. Guided into a luxurious black car, Emma clutched her paintbrush. Olivia sat next to her, chatting brightly, easing Emma's tension gradually. As the scenery outside changed, a different face of New York, unknown to Emma's daily life, unfolded. As they approached a mansion in an upscale Manhattan neighborhood, the car stopped. I wonder if Father is back, Olivia said as they approached the entrance. At that moment, the study door opened. Alex Howard, a magnate of an investment firm, appeared. The moment he saw Emma, it seemed as if time stopped. Who are you? Alex's voice faltered as the color drained from his face. Emma's standing figure and her profile lit by the window's light were exactly like a scene he had witnessed half a century ago. Alex, we've found a new talent. Victoria's voice held a significant tone. She watched her husband's discomposure as if she had anticipated it. Father? Olivia looked worriedly at her father's face. Emma did not understand the reason for Alex's agitation, but she felt a strange kinship with the depth of emotion in his blue eyes, like finding something she had been seeking since childhood. Victoria observed the situation coolly, her eyes reflecting the satisfaction of a long-held plan coming to fruition. From that moment, Emma's fate would become entangled with threads of a past she did not know, and the intentions of those pulling the strings were deeper and more ruthless than anyone could imagine. Only Olivia watched the strange tension between her parents with anxious eyes, sensing for the first time in her 21 years the presence of a significant secret within her family. The dawn light softly illuminated the east wing of the Howard estate. Alex awoke earlier than usual and stared at the studio from his study window. He had been restless since yesterday. Emma's presence had awakened memories he had tried to forget for years. It's just my imagination. Alex sighed deeply for what seemed like the umpteenth time. Sarah. It wasn't the first time he'd seen a woman resembling the one he had loved 25 years ago. Over the years, he had experienced similar delusions many times, passing women, museum visitors, young artists, but it had always been merely coincidental resemblances. But this girl. Emma's profile had even appeared in his dreams the previous night. Good morning, Father. Olivia greeted, bringing breakfast. Emma has already started working. She really is an early riser. Alex nodded silently. He had been watching Emma since dawn. Like Sarah used to, she had entered the studio at sunrise and first stood by the window looking up at the sky. Father? Sorry. I was just thinking about Emma. Olivia peered anxiously into her father's face. Something has been off since yesterday. Alex struggled to respond. What could he explain to his daughter? A distant past love, a breakup, and the lingering regrets he hadn't yet dared to speak of. It's probably just a coincidence. Despite reassuring himself, Alex's steps were already leading him to the studio. Excuse me. At the sound of a knock, Emma turned around. In that moment, Alex's heart skipped a beat. Her profile, lit by the morning sun, overlapped so much with Sarah's. Mr. Howard. Emma smiled. I'm sorry to intrude so early. I just had to capture this light. Her choice of words, her passion for chasing the light, it was all just as it had been 25 years ago. Don't worry about it. I also used to know a painter. She often worked early in the morning too. Emma tilted her head curiously. A painter? Yes. She was. His words choked in his throat. A special person. What was she like? Alex lost his words momentarily at Emma's question. Why did he feel compelled to talk about Sarah to this stranger, something he hadn't done for a long time? It baffled even him. She was someone who painted light. Alex continued, choosing his words as he stood by the window. Always looked up at the sky first and wondered what kind of light would come down today. I do the same. Emma's response sent a shiver down Alex's spine. The color of the sky tells me what kind of painting I can create today. In that moment, Emma unconsciously picked up an old paintbrush. It had a slightly worn wooden handle and a brass ferrule with small scratches. Alex's eyes widened. That brush, Sarah had treasured it until the very end. Why did Emma have it? That brush. This one? Emma looked at the brush nostalgically. It's always been my treasure. For some reason, I feel calm whenever I paint with it. Trying not to show his turmoil, Alex casually looked out the window. However, his heart was in turmoil. The handle of the brush that Sarah had used had the exact same marks, made when she mixed paint during her student days. They were minor marks, but no two were the same. Mr. Howard? Emma's voice brought him back. She looked at him with concern, her gentle gaze too reminiscent of Sarah's. Sorry. I was just lost in thought. Leaving the studio, Alex headed straight for his study. He opened a drawer and took out an old photo. There was young Sarah, smiling with the same paintbrush. He glanced at the calendar. Emma was 24. 25 years ago, he had parted ways with Sarah. Alex's hands trembled. The timing matched exactly. But it can't be. A knock sounded, and he hurriedly put the photo back in the drawer. Father. Olivia peeked in. I thought I'd take Emma to the museum for lunch. Would you like to join us? Yes, that sounds good. Alex smiled at his daughter, but his mind was elsewhere. He needed to find out more about Emma and understand the meaning behind the words Sarah had tried to say the last time they met. In the Metropolitan Museum of Art's Impressionist Gallery, Emma was intently observing Monet's works. Alex watched her profile from a distance. It was here too, back then. Alex's memory drifted to a rainy afternoon 25 years ago. Alex. When he turned around, there stood Sarah. There had been no contact from her since she sent the wedding invitation. It's been a while. Sarah's voice trembled slightly, lacking its usual lightness, now tinged with urgency. I'm glad we could meet in front of Monet's work. She smiled while brushing her rain-soaked hair. It's your favorite place. It was also where they had first met. Sarah, why? I heard about the wedding. Congratulations. Sarah cut him off, her voice mixed with resignation. There's something I need to tell you. She paused several times, taking deep breaths as if struggling to choose her words. I need to tell you. Just then, Sarah's phone rang. She looked at the screen and her expression stiffened. I'm sorry, I have to go. Wait, Sarah. Alex reached out, but she was already running away. Left behind were the smell of rain and the echo of unspoken words. That was the last time he saw Sarah. 3 months later, he received news of her death, a succinct newspaper article about a car accident. But something was amiss. The weight of the words she had tried to say was too great. Father? Olivia's voice brought Alex back to reality. Hey, Emma. She called out in front of the paintings. Do you like this water lilies the best? Yes. Emma nodded. There's something special about how the light is captured. I've always been drawn to this painting since I was little. Alex's heart raced. Sarah had always paused in front of this painting too. Actually, something interesting happened. Emma continued. When my foster father adopted me, he had this postcard of the painting. So, I think my biological mother must have bought it at the museum. Those words connected something inside Alex. Father, you look pale. Olivia said worriedly, grasping his arm. I'm fine. However, Alex's mind was in turmoil. What was Sarah about to tell him that day? And why had Victoria brought Emma here? Was this really just a coincidence? On the way home in the car, Alex made up his mind. He had to trace Sarah's steps once more and uncover the truth she had tried to tell him. I'll be going out tomorrow, Alex informed the driver. His destination was the apartment where Sarah had lived last. He had a hunch that something was still there that could serve as a clue. In an old apartment in Greenwich Village, Alex stopped. The building hadn't changed. Was this Sarah Winter's apartment? The elderly caretaker tilted her head. Ah, the young painter. Yes, her apartment has been left untouched. Untouched? Yes, the rent is paid every year. Strangely, I'm told not to move anything in the room. Someone seems to come by regularly to clean. Alex furrowed his brow. Sarah was supposed to have died in an accident. Why was the rent still being paid? And who was keeping this room intact? He took the old key and ascended the stairs. At the end of the hallway, a sunny room, likely chosen by Sarah, who always cherished the light. As he opened the door, despite the dusty air, signs of recent cleaning were visible. Stepping into the room, which served as a studio, the easel was still in place, and paint and palettes were arranged as if recently used. It was a room where time seemed to stand still, yet strangely felt the presence of someone. On the windowsill, Sarah's diaries were lined up. Alex took the last one, and an ultrasound photo slipped out from between the pages. His hands trembled. The date was just after they had parted. Could it be? He opened the last page of the diary. Sarah's delicate handwriting was clear. To my beloved child, if someone finds this letter, please tell them this: you were born out of love. I made the decision to leave Alex because of me. I couldn't ruin his life with my selfishness. But I decided to protect you no matter what. I will protect you no matter what happens. The entry ended there. On the next page was a copy of adoption papers, and a small locket was inserted. Opening it, he found Sarah's hair carefully preserved inside, as if left for a DNA test. Sarah. Alex muttered, suppressing his emotions. You wanted the truth to eventually come out, didn't you? He placed the locket in his chest pocket and quietly left the room. The reason someone was maintaining the room and the truth about Sarah's death remained shrouded in darkness. However, he now had something urgent to confirm. He called his secretary on his mobile. Could you arrange a DNA test? Yes, keep it strictly confidential. On the way home, Alex watched the setting sun through the car window. After 25 years, he was finally nearing the truth about Sarah. The similarities he found in Emma, that old paintbrush, and the evidence discovered today, all pointed to one possibility. At the same time, he harbored a premonition that revealing this truth might hurt someone, especially Olivia. How would he explain this hidden past to his real daughter? The evening sky turned red, eerily reminiscent of the sky on the day he last saw Sarah. Weeks later, a new figure appeared in the sunlit studio. "My name is James Campbell," said the man in his early 30s with sharp eyes and a well-structured face. Dressed in a fine suit, he exuded a practical rather than pretentious air typical of the art world. "Ms. Emma Gray," he said, stepping forward with a gentlemanly smile. "Apologies for the late introduction. Mrs. Howard spoke highly of your talent." Emma paused her painting and turned quietly. "Nice to meet you. There's a special soul in your work." James looked at the canvas on the easel with an expert's eye. Underneath his overt praise, there was a calculated undertone. "Special, you say?" As Emma began to respond modestly, James gracefully waved his hand. "Don't be modest. To think that with such talent, you were painting in the streets of New York." He feigned sympathy intentionally. "Please let me maximize your talent at my gallery." His voice carried a certain pushiness, but beneath that, the hidden calculations were not yet apparent to Emma. "Thank you for your kind words, but..." "Emma," James said earnestly, "art needs an environment that understands and nurtures it. I have the capability to launch your talent. A top-notch exhibition at my Fifth Avenue gallery." Just then, Olivia entered the room. "Oh, Mr. Campbell." "Olivia." James switched to a perfect smile. "We were just discussing an exhibition for Emma." In the streaming sunlight, Emma felt a faint hope about this gentlemanly man's offer, unaware that it would soon greatly change her life. In fact, the night before this day, Victoria and James had a secret meeting in a posh Manhattan restaurant. James Campbell, sipping wine, smiled quietly. "How about it? This proposal?" Across the table, Victoria elegantly twisted her lips. Her offer was extraordinary: marriage to Emma and in return, a substantial reward and the influence of the Howard family in the art world. "I'll need to think about it." James chose his words carefully. As an emerging gallerist in Manhattan, still far from being top tier, this was an opportunity he couldn't have dreamed of. "There's something special about that girl," Victoria said meaningfully. "Not just her talent. Her very existence has a certain value." "Artistic value, you mean?" "Well, yes." Victoria ambiguously muddied her words. "Anyway, I want you to marry Emma." "Of course, love is not necessary." James silently sipped his wine, recalling the impression he had when he first saw Emma's artwork yesterday. She indeed has talent, but what intrigued him more was her unique aura, as if she was harboring the essence of someone else. "What are the terms?" "First, all rights to Emma's works will belong to your gallery. And then..." Victoria's voice lowered. "After the marriage, I would like you to restrict her freedom of action." "Not to the extent of confinement?" "Right, elegantly. Like a bird in a cage, as an artist." James gazed thoughtfully out the window at the Manhattan night scene, just beginning to light up. It would take years to achieve genuine success in the art world. However, accepting this deal could catapult him to the top. Guilt about Emma? That was just a price to pay for success. "I understand," he responded, raising his glass. Ambition flickered in his eyes. "However, I have one condition. In addition to the rights to Emma's work, I want information on Sarah Winter's remaining works." Victoria's expression stiffened momentarily. "Why?" "A hunch. I see Sarah Winter's influence in Emma's paintings. Her art market might still be an untapped goldmine." Silence ensued. Victoria observed James' face for a long while before finally speaking. All right. But that comes after the wedding. Until then, do not speak of Sarah. He sensed the deep darkness underlying this deal, but it was exactly what fueled his ambition. Partnering with Victoria Howard, a pillar of the art community, would greatly expand his own ambitions. Imagining the future, James allowed a sinister smile to cross his face. 3 days after Emma met James, a heavy atmosphere lingered in the Howard estate's dining room. Emma, let's discuss Mr. Campbell's proposal. Victoria abruptly started, halting everyone in their tracks. Emma recalled their recent meeting, his gentlemanly demeanor and his words showing understanding of art. Yet they hadn't had enough time to talk thoroughly. Let's hold your exhibition on Fifth Avenue's Main Street, as he suggested. Victoria proposed. Emma looked up, shocked. An exhibition on Fifth Avenue was an opportunity no artist could easily obtain. Really? Emma's voice trembled. Yes. We'll prominently display the figures of those you met on the streets, making a strong statement to society about their existence. Emma's eyes lit up. Being able to portray the truth she knew from her experiences on the streets and having it seen by many was a unique opportunity. But there is a condition. Victoria's voice turned cold. James, come in. James entered the dining room, perfectly dressed, his smile calculated. Emma, he began as he sat down. Let's fully utilize your talent at my gallery. To the fullest extent? Yes. Of course, we'll include works of street dwellers, but also portraits of the upper class, James continued, sipping his tea elegantly. Art needs those who understand and support it to thrive. So, my paintings will serve as tools for social change. Victoria interjected. But your voice will only be heard because of James' gallery and the Howard family name. Otherwise, it ends up mere street artist ramblings. Mother! Olivia exclaimed. Emma! James said firmly, yet quietly. Art is a product of compromise. To realize ideals, a certain status is necessary. Our marriage will be the first step. Marriage. Emma's face paled. Yes, that's the condition, marrying James. We'll hold an official engagement party next week. Victoria announced. There will also showcase your new works. James added. Don't you truly want to deliver the voices of the people you met on the streets? I have the means to make it possible. Emma stared out the window. Images of the mother and child she met on the streets, the elderly, and the youth who had lost hope filled her mind. She wanted to deliver their voices, a desire that tightened her heart. If this marriage will help my paintings reach those who need them. Emma, no. Olivia cried out. I've decided. Emma's voice was calm but resolute. I have things I must paint. James stood up and slipped the ring he had prepared onto Emma's finger. At that moment, the setting sun shone through the window, casting a mystical light on the ring. Late that night, Emma was in her studio under the moonlight, facing a new canvas. The scene depicted was of people holding lights in the darkness, resembling both a prayer and a hope. Is my choice the right one? She murmured. The moon shining in the night sky seemed to hesitate in the clouds in response. The next day, Emma faced a new canvas in the studio. Let's start with portraits of the upper class. Suddenly, a voice came from behind, causing Emma to turn around. James had appeared in the studio. His gentlemanly demeanor had faded, and a calculating look was in his eyes. But the promise was. Yes, I said we'd display the street dwellers' paintings. James approached. But the main focus is different. To enhance the gallery's value, we need the right clientele. Emma gripped her brush tightly. I want to paint those who are overlooked, to voice the voiceless. Emma. James's voice turned cold. Look at the reality. You can't survive in the art world with charity-like works. To realize your ideals, you must first accept the rules of our world. The figures of a mother and child illuminated by moonlight emerged on the canvas. The mother, holding a young child, displayed a mix of deep sadness and strength. This piece. James frowned. It's not suitable for the engagement party. But please prepare another piece by next week, something that the upper class would prefer. Just then, Olivia's footsteps could be heard from the hallway. James quickly changed his expression, putting on a gentlemanly smile. I'll take my leave now. Emma quietly watched James's retreating back. Emma. Olivia approached her with a worried tone. Are you really okay with this? I have something I must paint. Emma said softly, yet with firm resolve. Even if it takes a long route. Emma's brush began to move over the new canvas. The faces she painted now bore deeper shadows than before, but it seemed that the light within them shone all the brighter. The figures of people living on the fringes of society, their voiceless voices, she wanted to deliver them somehow. This conviction alone supported her now. With the engagement party only 5 days away, Emma faced a new canvas in her studio early in the morning. She tried to paint a portrait suitable for the upper class, as James had requested, but her brush did not progress as she wished. It seems that Emma sighed and looked out the window, overlaying her past self with the people passing by on the street. The days when she desperately painted on the streets might have been when her heart was freer. Emma, breakfast is ready. Olivia appeared as usual with a tray. Lately, she always came to visit Emma early in the morning, not just out of sisterly affection but seemingly wanting to say something. Thank you. As Emma turned around, Olivia glanced at her new work. This is the painting James wants. But I can't seem to paint it right. Emma confessed. Olivia silently stared at the canvas, then said in a low voice. Last night, I heard voices from Father's study. Emma set down her brush. He was on the phone with someone. Their conversation was abruptly cut off by sudden footsteps. Alex stood there, his face pale. Father? Olivia, Emma. His hand clutched a white envelope. Sorry, I have urgent business. Rushing into his study, Alex's hands trembled as he opened the envelope, a DNA test result confirming with 99.9% certainty that Emma was his biological daughter with Sarah. Just as I thought. Alex slumped into a chair. Emma was being forced into an unwanted marriage right before his eyes, and yet, as a father, he felt powerless. Late at night, 3 days before the engagement party, Olivia sneaked into her mother's study. She opened a drawer and searched through old documents, articles about Sarah Winters, exhibition catalogs, and a letter. To Victoria, your demands are unacceptable. Not only the rights to my work, but above all. The letter was cut off there, dated just before Sarah's death. Olivia quickly took a photo of the letter and carefully replaced it. She had to show it to her father. This could be the key to unraveling everything. The next morning in Emma's studio, she faced a new canvas. But instead of the portraits of the upper class that were expected, she painted a group portrait of the people she had met on the streets, a piece reminiscent of a prayer. Emma. Olivia approached quietly. How's the work going? As usual, I can't progress with what they want. This piece might make them angry if I show it. Just then, the studio door opened. Good morning. Victoria stood there, her usual cold smile in place. How is the new work? James appeared behind her. I hope it's suitable for the engagement party. His voice held only pure calculation, unaware of the deep entanglements swirling within the household. Emma and Olivia gasped. The canvas depicted a truth they did not want to see, the cries of the soul from people living on the streets. This is. James's voice turned cold. Not what we agreed on. James approached the canvas, frowning. Emma, he said in a refined tone. I understand your artistic vision, but the gallery requires a certain level of dignity. Our clients expect something more elegant. He continued firmly, though with a polite smile. Could you redraw it now? Perhaps portraits of my friends. There's still time before the engagement party. But what I want to paint is. There is a suitable place for art. James interrupted calmly. Your talent can be expressed in a more sophisticated form. Victoria nodded in agreement. Exactly. Emma, your paintings must survive in our world. Let go of your sentiments. Emma clenched her brush tightly, her hand trembling slightly. I understand. She replied quietly. However, a flame of unwavering resolve burned in the depths of her eyes. James gracefully bowed and left, followed by Victoria. After they departed, Olivia placed her hand on Emma's shoulder. Emma. It's okay. Emma smiled faintly. I have something I must paint, even if it's not visible right now. Morning light streamed through the studio window, as if someone was watching over them. That same day, deep into the night, Alex sat in his study, staring at the DNA test results. 25 years ago, he had not had the courage to listen to the words of the woman he loved. Sarah had been trying to tell him something desperately. He had clearly sensed her anxiety and determination in her eyes. Yet, he chose to protect his family expectations, his promises with Victoria, and his own position. And now, the same mistake was about to be repeated. His biological daughter was being forced into an unwanted marriage, just like her mother had tried to speak out on that day with the same desperate look as Sarah's. Am I going to ignore it again? Alex picked up a photo from the desk, the last one taken with Sarah. What was she trying to say? And if he had listened, could Emma's life have been different? This time, I must. Just then, a knock on the door echoed. Father. Olivia opened the door quietly. I've noticed something about Miss Emma. Olivia continued with a tense expression. The way Emma captures light in her paintings, her brushstrokes, and even the way she looks up at the sky, it's all exactly like the images of Sarah I found in an old catalog in Mother's study. Alex looked up in surprise. Why do you know about Sarah? Ever since Emma came to our house, Mother has been unusually obsessed with her, right? I thought there must be something behind it, so I started digging. That's when I found the old exhibition catalog in Mother's study, with Sarah's works in it. That's not all. Olivia carefully chose her words, watching her father's reaction. The old paintbrush that Emma has, it's the same one pictured in photos of Sarah's work. And considering Emma's age. Olivia. Alex stood up and showed her the DNA test results. Olivia gasped. Father, this means? Tears sparkled in her eyes. Yes. Emma is my daughter. With the woman I loved long ago. And Victoria knew about her. Back then, I chose appearances over true love. Appearances? Olivia looked sad, and Alex embraced her. I've always loved you deeply. That's the honest truth. Thank you, Father. Feeling reassured by her father's warmth, Olivia looked up. Father, we can't run away this time. We have to protect Emma. But Victoria. Mother is just using Emma. Olivia's voice grew stronger. Father, you visit Emma's studio every day and say nothing. I wake up every morning feeling a strange familiarity with Emma's work, staying silent. If we continue like this, the dignity of someone who is part of our family might be stripped away. At her words, Alex sighed deeply. He had raised this daughter for 21 years, but now she seemed much stronger. Father, I don't know much about Sarah, but I understand Emma. She's fighting alone right now. And we are just overlooking it. Olivia. I'm going to see Emma tomorrow. Olivia stated decisively. With Sarah's catalog. Let's stop turning away from the truth. Meanwhile, in the studio, Emma faced a new canvas. On the surface, a portrait for the upper class. But another piece, hidden against the wall, contained her true feelings. Emma. Turned around, Emma saw Olivia standing there, holding an old catalog in her hands. Why do you look so sad? When Emma asked, Olivia hesitated for a moment but then walked over quietly. There's something I want to show you. When she opened the catalog, a photo of a young female artist holding a paintbrush, the same one Emma cherished, jumped out. This is Sarah Winters, a painter. Olivia said quietly. This photo is 26 years old. Art critics wrote that she had a special way of capturing light. Emma gasped. The works of Sarah in the catalog felt strangely familiar, despite being scenes she had never seen. The way the sky was painted, the expressions of the people, and especially the portrayal of light and shadow, all these matched the instincts that naturally came from within her. This brush. Emma took out her treasured brush. My foster parents gave it to me saying it was your keepsake. But whose keepsake it was? Olivia silently pointed to the photo in the catalog. Indeed, the same brush with its distinctive marks was held by Sarah. Emma, haven't you always been searching for something within yourself? Olivia's voice was gentle. It must be something passed down from her. A pure passion for art, a kindness that gazes into people's hearts, and at that moment, there was a sense of someone opening the door. Olivia quickly hid the catalog. Only the moonlight quietly illuminated their faces. The unspoken truth began to take a tangible form. The person at the door was a nighttime servant who apologized and quickly left. Emma. Olivia spoke again softly. It's late, but I want you to keep this catalog. Emma silently accepted the catalog, feeling its weight resonate with her. Hey, tell me. Emma finally managed to say, her voice strained. How did you find this catalog? Olivia chose her words carefully, then softly replied. I found it in Mother's study. But she paused, not ready to reveal everything just yet. I wanted to know more about you. Emma hugged the catalog to her chest. She remembered her foster father's gentle hands guiding hers in painting, the warm moments learning about light and shadow, and the days her foster mother whispered, "You have a special talent." And after losing everything, those freezing days on the streets, desperately capturing people's expressions and gestures. Though the techniques were different, painting had always been as natural as breathing to her. And now, seeing Sarah Winters's works in front of her, although she had never seen these landscapes before, every stroke felt familiar. The way of painting the sky, capturing the deep emotions in people's faces, and above all, a unique sense of capturing light, not learned or studied, but something that had always slumbered within her. Tomorrow is, Olivia started to say, and Emma nodded quietly. Yes, the engagement party. They stood by the window, looking up at the night sky. The Manhattan city lights twinkled in the distance, possibly the same sight Sarah Winters once gazed upon, pondering something significant. The morning of the engagement party. As the mansion bustled with preparations, 3 rooms held individuals firming up their resolutions. In his study, Alex placed the DNA test results into a safe, finally resolved to reveal the truth. Olivia reviewed the photo of the letter she found in her mother's study, over and over. And in the studio, Emma stopped her work at the easel, her hand trembling slightly with the brush. The piece she was painting was her soul's cry, disguised as a portrait for the upper class, but secretly interwoven with the emotions of the people she met on the streets. In that painting, the light shone strangely, as if emotions from long ago were being carried on through her strokes. And finally, on the day of the engagement party, the grand ballroom of a luxurious hotel adjacent to the Metropolitan Museum of Art was bustling with preparations from early morning. The chandeliers cast a soft glow, each piece of furniture adding to the premium radiance of the setting. In a lavish corner of the space, Emma's paintings were displayed. James nodded in satisfaction as he directed the staff on the decoration. Adjust the angle of this light, yes, a bit more to the right. His attention was more on the reactions of the art critics who had already begun to gather than on the artworks themselves. Meanwhile, in the hotel's backstage room, Emma quietly gazed out the window. Dressed in a pure white gown with her hair beautifully arranged, a firm resolve seemed to dwell in the depths of her eyes. Emma. Olivia entered the room, also dressed in a party gown. Did you get a chance to look through the catalog last night? Emma nodded slightly. Yes, and. She stood up, retrieved a large cylindrical container from the corner of the room, and said, "Look at this." She pulled out a canvas that she had completed from the night before through that morning. Olivia gasped. At first glance, it resembled a scene from an elegant upper-class party. However, upon closer inspection, the figures of people Emma had encountered on the streets were interwoven into the crowd, a mother holding a child in the shadow of a woman in a lavish dress, the profile of a shivering old man behind a gentleman raising a champagne glass. Above all, the way the light was portrayed was reminiscent of Sarah Winter's technique, capturing the soul. Emma, this piece, it will surely resonate. It truly conveys your feelings. Her voice is a mix of deep emotion and urgency. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Are you ready? It was Victoria's voice. The two hurriedly hid the canvas. Yes, almost. Olivia responded. Victoria's footsteps receded. Olivia looked at Emma and said, "I'm here for you." Emma nodded quietly. All she could do now was express her art sincerely, even if it went against someone else's wishes. The resolve in her eyes deepened. In the grand ballroom, New York's elite gathered, one by one. The sound of champagne, elegant conversations, and occasional laughter filled the air, a perfect snapshot of a high society gathering. Alex stood nervously by the wall, pressing the envelope containing the DNA results against his chest, periodically checking his watch. Olivia nodded quietly beside him. When Emma entered in her white dress, a murmur of admiration swept through the room. Her profile, lit by the chandelier's light, exuded a nostalgic beauty. Thank you all for gathering here today. James began from the center of the room with a perfect smile. Today we are showcasing the works of the talented young artist, Emma Gray. And he nodded courteously towards Emma. We are also announcing our engagement to you all. Polite applause echoed around the room, with Victoria smiling contentedly. The walls displayed the pieces James had requested, elegant portraits of the upper class, technically exquisite but seemingly suppressing Emma's true artistic identity. Now, before we toast, let me formally say. As James was about to raise his glass, Olivia stepped forward. May I have a moment, please? Her voice carried an uncharacteristic assertiveness. I have something important to share about Emma's art and this engagement. Victoria's expression stiffened. Confused, Emma looked at Olivia. Alex stood up slowly, holding an old photograph. Olivia, what are you? Victoria attempted to interrupt, but Alex's voice, calm yet firm, cut through the silence. Let me explain. The room fell dead silent. The usually reserved investment magnate stepped forward with an air of urgency. Years ago, this city was home to an artist named Sarah Winters. Alex held up the old photo, causing a stir among the attendees. In it, a young woman smiled in front of a freshly completed painting, the same woman from the catalog Olivia had shown Emma the night before. She was a genius at capturing light but tragically died in an accident. Alex's voice trembled slightly, and Emma felt an odd sense of disconnection. Why was her engagement party turning into a discussion about a long-dead painter? Sarah had a secret. Alex paused, then slowly turned towards Emma. She had a daughter. Silence. Victoria's sharp command sliced through the air, but Olivia held up a letter. Mother, this is Sarah's last letter to you. Emma gasped as the atmosphere froze. Olivia unfolded the aged letter, her voice clear as she read aloud in the hushed venue. Victoria. My answer remains unchanged. I cannot transfer the rights to my works as you wish. And about this child too. Art will never be someone's possession. The emotions I've poured into my paintings, and my child's future, will not bend to your will. Even if you corner me more than now. Even if it means losing everything. I have something I must protect. The murmurs grew as James looked at Victoria, puzzled. He was unaware of these revelations. Emma. Alex turned back to her with a gentle voice. The paintbrush you cherish was a keepsake from Sarah. And he pulled a DNA test result from his breast pocket. You are Sarah and my. Alex choked up with emotion, and Olivia's voice carried through the silent hall. Emma is Sarah's and my father's daughter, my half-sister. For Emma, the unfolding events felt surreal. Fragmented memories shared by her adoptive parents, the origin of her precious paintbrush, and naturally, her own artistic expression, all connected in an instant. Here are the DNA test results. Alex presented the document, and a new murmur arose from the audience. Emma, you are undoubtedly my daughter. James is my father. Emma's voice trembled. Mother knew everything. Olivia continued. She pushed Sarah to the edge, and now she was using you. No. Victoria shouted. I just. But then, a voice called out from the back of the hall. Victoria Howard. Two detectives approached quietly. New evidence has surfaced indicating your involvement in the accident of Sarah Winters. James stood frozen. Such a turn of events was not something he had ever anticipated in his meticulously planned life. Emma. Alex stepped forward. Please forgive me. 25 years ago, I lacked the courage to listen. Despite knowing what Sarah was trying to tell me. Tears streamed down Emma's cheeks. Her entire life had not been a series of coincidences. The blood running through her veins had always been guiding her towards her true path. Father. Her words carried the weight of decades of emotion. Olivia rushed over and grasped Emma's hand, a gesture of true familial bond. Through the venue's windows, a soft light streamed in, as if Sarah herself was smiling down on them. Don't be absurd. Victoria's cry echoed through the venue. What did I do? I was merely trying to preserve the order of the art world. Her voice carried a fierceness never heard before. Sarah Winters was, after all, a nobody, just another obscure painter. She was nothing but a thief who stole Alex's heart. At these words, Alex clenched his fists tightly. A thief? Olivia's voice trembled. Mother, weren't you the one trying to take everything from Sarah? No. Victoria's voice rose even higher. 25 years ago, I merely advised her. Transfer the rights to your works, and your child will have a secure future. Then a flicker of light crossed Emma's eyes. But she refused. She insisted on keeping everything, her art, Alex's child, as her own. Victoria's voice grew hysterical. She tried to ruin my life. So you harmed my mother. Emma murmured faintly. Yes, I only warned her. But she wouldn't listen, and then, on that rainy day. Victoria's voice trailed off. The venue watched in rapt silence. Mother, what happened that day? Olivia pressed. Memories from 25 years ago flooded Victoria's eyes. In front of the rainy art museum, Sarah was desperately trying to convey something. This child, to Alex. Be quiet. Victoria had gripped Sarah's arm tightly. You don't have the right. No, I. Suddenly, there was a shock. On the wet stairs, Sarah slipped. Or was she pushed? Victoria's voice trembled. I just wanted to protect my life. And now, you used me to torment my father. Emma's voice was a mix of sorrow and pity. Used? No. Victoria screamed. I was crafting the perfect revenge. The room gasped at her words. Yes, I've been searching all these years. Victoria's voice was filled with raw emotion. There had to be a daughter, a record of an adoption I found, but it ended there. She stared icily at Emma standing motionless. And then, that day at the Metropolitan Museum, when I found you, I was certain. The cursed woman's daughter, painting on the streets. An irony too perfect. Victoria's smile was bitter. Even after 25 years, Sarah never left Alex's heart. His study drawer still houses her photos. So, I thought, let's bring Sarah's daughter into the Howard household, make Alex suffer every day. See his face, his reactions. Mother. Olivia's voice was shaking with grief. And finally, to bind this daughter of hers by marriage as a chain. Could there be a more perfect revenge? Alex's face contorted with pain. Emma silently stared at the woman who had hated her real mother. You're under arrest, the detective's calm declaration overlaid the echo of Victoria's confession. Victoria Howard, you are arrested on suspicion of involvement in Sarah Winter's death. Victoria stood as if all strength had left her, her facade crumbling loudly. I controlled everything. Her broken laugh filled the venue. The rights to Sarah's works, her apartment. I kept everything for when it might be needed, to erase or use her traces. I had controlled everything about that woman. Emma, still in disbelief, watched the scene unfold. James had already disappeared, his life of calculations had not included this outcome. Emma. Alex approached hesitantly. Emma slowly looked up, seeing regret and love overflowing in his eyes. I've always. His voice broke. I never had the courage to heed Sarah's final words. And without atoning for that sin, the years passed. Tears fell again on Emma's cheeks. At that moment, the old paintbrush in her hand seemed to warm with life. But the artistic talent was indeed passed down. Olivia whispered quietly. I've always felt a strange nostalgia in Emma's paintings. It must be. The paintings displayed around the venue now shone with a different light. Even within the formal portraits of the upper class, Sarah's soul truly lived on. Not just through genetics, but through the soul itself, passed down through the paintbrush. Emma finally found her voice. I've always felt like something was missing inside me. But it was knowing your roots. Olivia squeezed her sister's hand gently. As Victoria Howard was led away by the police, she turned around one last time, her eyes revealing emotions never seen before, a mixture of jealousy, hatred, and a deep sense of loneliness. Through the venue's windows, refreshing light poured in, illuminating everything as if finally shedding light on the truth. And there, in that light, Alex, Emma, and Olivia were quietly forming a new family. 1 year later in spring, a new gallery opened near the Metropolitan Museum of Art. The building, a refurbished old bank, bore a simple brass sign that shone in the light. Winters Howard Gallery. Stepping into the lobby, visitors were first greeted by a self-portrait of Sarah Winters. In her youth, she held that special paintbrush and her face wore a gentle smile. Beside it, a new plaque was installed. Light transcends time. Emma, the new scholarship recipients have arrived. Olivia entered with coffee. Over the year, the gallery had become not just a space for exhibitions, but also a hub for supporting artists with backgrounds in street living. Thank you. Emma smiled warmly, her once ephemeral gaze now filled with a resolute strength. Over the year, Emma and Alex gradually spent father-daughter time together. Initially hesitant, they began visiting museums every Sunday morning. Back then, Sarah always painted here. Alex shared memories, painting a picture of Emma's mother for her. She was captivated by the changing light, just like you. These moments were precious to Emma. The mother she only knew from photos came vividly to life through Alex's stories. I'm truly sorry. One day, Alex said with a deep sigh. If I had listened to Sarah that day, you wouldn't have had to suffer so much. Emma shook her head gently. No, I am grateful for my life now. The memories with my foster parents, the experiences on the streets, all of it made me who I am today. And they led me to you and my dear sister, Olivia. Moved by her words, Alex choked up. Emma. Olivia. Months later, Alex entered the room, fatherly warmth in his voice, holding some documents. The budget for our new support program has been approved. He announced joyfully. We can officially start our art education support for street dwellers. Emma nodded quietly. Everything she had experienced was now shaping into new hope. Hey. Olivia stood by the window, basking in the spring sunlight. We've really become a true family, haven't we? The gallery displayed various artworks, Emma's new pieces, works by young street artists, and a few remaining paintings by Sarah. These creations harmoniously filled the space. Outside the window, someone was painting on the steps of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Emma quietly watched this scene. Her new life had started there, and now, a new story was beginning for someone else. The spring breeze gently tapped on the gallery's windows, as if Sarah was smiling upon them.